Hi guys, welcome back to Sinister Director Chat. Today we're looking at the Sinister world of John Carpenter. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Sinister Director Chat. We're talking about Director Tale, talking about John Carpenter. Before I do, don't forget to subscribe and notification bell because algorithm. So I'm going to go through all his movies. I'm going to go through and go to our full and start. So 1974 we had Dark Star. This was a science fiction comedy film. This was John Carpenter's first movie, and it starred Dan O'Bannon, Brian Narrow, Cal Cunningham, and Dre Pahich. Um, it was initially unsuccessful with audiences. It was relatively well received by critics and continued to be shown in theaters as late as 1980. I've not seen this movie. I don't know if it's good or not. Then in 1976, we had Assault on Precinct 13, which was an action thriller film. It starred Austin Stoker, Darwin Justin, and Laurie Zimmer. I have not seen this movie. It was initially met with mixed reviews and unimpressive box office returns. It has gotten a cult following and reappraisal from critics, with many reviewing the film as one of the best action films of Aaron Carpenter's career. A remake was released in 2005, which that one was not directed by John Carpenter, but Assault on Precinct 13. Then 1978 we had Halloween, which was an independent slasher film. It starred Donald Pleasance, Jamie Lee Curtis, P.J. Souls, and Nancy Loomis, and it made $70,300,000 to $325,000 budget. It became one of the most profitable independent films of the year of all time, primarily praised for Carpenter's direction and score. By many critics credit the film as the first in a long line of such films inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and Bob Dylan's Christmas. It is considered one of the greatest and most influential horror films ever made. Halloween spawned a film franchise comprising 13 films, which helped construct an extensive backstory for its antagonist Michael Myers. Sometimes narratively diverged entirely from previous installments. Additional novelization of video game and comic book series have been based on the film. I still think this is probably the best Halloween film. That's Halloween. And then 1980 we had The Fog, which was a supernatural horror film. It starred Adrian Babu, Jamie Lee Curtis, John Houseman, Janet Leigh, and Hal Holbrook. Made $21.3 million, $1.1 million budget. The film divided critics upon release, receiving praise for its visuals and acting, and criticism for its structure and screenplay. The film contains themes of revenge and represented corrupt historical events resurfacing contemporary small town. And in the years since its release, it has been noted for establishing a cult following. A remake was released in 2005. So that's The Fog. Then in 1981, we had Escape from New York, which was a science fiction action film. It starred Kurt Russell, Lee Van Cleef, Ernest Bernstein, Donald Pleasance, Isaac Hayes, Harry Dean Stanton, and Adrian Barbeau. With a $25.2 million, $6 million budget. The principally positive reason was a commercial success. So it was a great movie to escape from New York. Then in 1982, we had The Thing, which was a science fiction horror film based on the 1938 John W. Campbell Jr. novella Who Goes There. It starred Kurt Russell, A. Wilford Brimley, T.K. Carter, David Clement, Keith David, Richard Dysart, Charles Hallahan, Peter Maloney, Richard Messer, Donald Moffat, Joel Polis, and John G. Waits. $19.6 million, $50 million budget. It received negative reviews that described it as instant junk and a wretched excess. Critics both praised the special effects achievements and criticized their visual repulsiveness, while others found the characterization poorly realized. Many reasons have been cited for its failure to impress audiences. Competition from films such as E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which often optimistic take on alien visitation. As someone that has been filled with success successful science fiction and fantasy films, and an audience living through regression geometry opposed to The Thing's nihilistic bleak tone. The film found an audience when released on home video and television. In the subsequent years, it has been reappraised as one of the best science fiction films and horror films ever made, and has gained a cult following. Filmmakers have noticed influence to their work, and it has been referred to in many other media, the television, video games. Um, the Thing spawned a variety of merchandise, including 1982 novelization, Horn House attractions, board games, and sequels of comics, a video game of the same title, and a 2011 prequel to the same title. There has been talks of a prequel. I still think it's my favorite John Carpenter movie. That's the thing. Then in 1983, we had Christine, which was a supernatural horror film. It was based on the Stephen King novel, 1983 novel of the same name, and it starred Keith Gordon, John Stockwell, Alexandra Paul, Robert Prosky, and Harry Dean Stanton. And made $21 million on $10 million budget. It received generally positive reviews from critics. The film has become a cult classic, a remake from Sony and Blumhouse in development. I actually like this movie. So that's Christine. Then 1984, we had Starman, which was a science fiction romance drama film. It stars Jeff Bridges, Karen Allen, Charles Martin Smith, and Richard Jekyll. Made $28.7 million, $24 million budget. The film received positive reviews, but faltered in its initial box office debut. It inspired a short-lived Starman television series in 1986. It was run for one season, 22 episodes from 1986 to 1987. And this movie's okay, so Starman. Then in 1986, we had Big Trouble in Little China, which was a fantasy action comedy film. It starred Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, Dennis Dunn, and Jamie Hong. Made $11.1 million on $19 to $25 million budget. It received only positive reviews, but left critics disillusioned with Hollywood and influenced his decision to return to filmmaking. It gained a steady audience at home and has become a cult classic. So that's Big Trouble in Little China. Great movie. Then in 1987, we had Prince of Darkness, which is a supernatural horror film. It starred Donald Pleasance, Lisa Blount, Victor Wong, and Jameson Parker. It made $14.2 million, $3 million budget. You see positive reviews as the Prince of Darkness. And then in 1988, we had They Live, which was a science fiction action horror film. It starred Roddy Piper, Keith David, and Meg Foster. It made $30 million, $3 million budget. It initially received negative reviews from critics who lambasted its social commentary, writing, and pacing. However, later gained a cult following and experienced a significantly more favorable critical reception. It's now regarded by many as one of Carpenter's best films. The film has also entered a pop culture lexicon, notably having a lasting effect on street art, particularly at Shepard Fairey. A nearly 6-minute sequence in which a predator boards the alley has made appearance of all time for the best fight scenes. That's They Live, great movie. Then in 1992, we had Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which was a comedy drama film. It starred Chevy Chase, Daryl Hannah, Sam Neill, Michael McKean, Stephen Tobolowsky. It made $14.4 million on a $30 to $40 million budget. And the film was initially developed for director Ivan Reitman. However, this version never came to fruition due to disagreements between Reitman and Chase. The film was a critical and commercial failure. So that's The Memoirs of an Invisible Man. Then in 1994, we had In the Mouth of Madness, which is a supernatural horror film. It stars Sam Neill, Judy Carmen, Jurgen Prochnow, and Charlton Heston. It made $8.9 million on an $8 million budget. The film is the third installment in what Carpenter refers to as his Apocalypse trilogy, preceded by The Thing and Prince of Darkness. And it received mixed reviews upon release, but has gained a cult following. And then in 1995, we had Village of the Damned, which was a science fiction horror film. It starred Christopher Reeve, Linda Kozlowski, Kirstie Allen, Michael Pear, Mark Hamill, and John Falk. Made $9.4 million on a $22 million budget. Um, um, yeah, it's based on the 1957 novel The Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham, which was previously adapted in the 1960 film of the same name. This was the last publicly released film starring Creed before he was paralyzed in an extraterrestrial accident in May 1995, as well as his last theatrical release film. The film was panned by critics and failed at the box office. And yeah, so that's Village of the Damned. Then in 1996, we had Escape from LA, which was a post-apocalyptic action film. It's a sequel to Escape from New York, and it stars Kurt Russell, Stacy Keach, Steve Buscemi, Peter Fonda, George Corofez, and Cliff Robertson. It made $25.5 million on a $50 million budget. It failed to meet studios' expectations at the box office, and polarizing reactions from critics. The film later found a strong cult following. That's Escape from LA. And then, 1998, we had Vampires, which was a neo-Western action horror film. It stars James Woods, Daniel Baldwin, Cheryl Lee, Thomas Ian Griffith, Maximilian Schell, and Tim Guinea. Made $20.3 million on a $20 million budget. And yeah, so it was adapted from the novel Vampires by John Steakley, and yeah, it was followed by two direct-to-video sequels: Vampires Los Muertos and Vampire the Turning. And yeah, so yeah, that's Vampires. And then the 2001 Ghosts of Mars, which was a space western action horror film. It starred Ice Cube, Natasha Henstridge, Jason Statham, Pam Grier, Pierre Deval, and Joanna Cassidy. It made $40 million on a $28 million budget. The film's mostly negative reason was a box office bomb. This would be John Carpenter's last feature film until his return in The Ward. The film has received calls from his release, with critics praising the action scenes, soundtrack, and blending of genres. Given the film's depth to Western cinema, particularly works with Howard Hawks, has been considered by a number of critics as an example of weird Western subgenre. Then finally, in 2010, we had The Ward, which was a supernatural psychological horror film. It starred Amber Heard, Mami Gumba, Daniel Panabaker, Laura Lee, Lindsay Fonseca, Mika Burim, and Jared Harris. It made $5.3 million, $10 million budget. And as of 2023, this is Carpenter's most recent film as a director, and it received generally negative reviews. And that's pretty much it. That's John Carpenter. I don't think he's made a bad film. I like all his movies. That's the Sinister World of John Carpenter. Guys, so much for my video. See my next video. Bye.